Hello guys, good evening. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to install SQL Server. And before installing SQL Server, we're going to start by creating a new machine. We'll create a new machine and we're going to name this June DBA 1. And then we're going to select the operating system. That is type. The operating system type is Windows, Microsoft Windows. And we're going to be using Windows 12. Next, I'm going to add the memory, that is RAM. So the minimum RAM required here is like 1.5 gig, but 2 gig is okay. So this is 2 gig. Next, I'm going to create now a virtual disk. Okay, and the recommended size for the virtual disk is 50 gigabytes, but we are going to allocate something like 25 gigabytes. This is our hard disk file type. We're going to choose the VirtualBox disk image, and the size is going to be dynamically allocated such that in case there is need for space, we can extend it. If you choose fixed size, that means we will not be able to extend the size in case of any need. Okay. And like I said, the disk size, we will need 25 gigabytes. This is just enough for the installation of. Okay. Create a virtual machine. Now I'm going to add, I'll go to setting. And in setting now, I'm going to add go to the system, and then I want to make sure I'm selecting this optical and push it up, because I'm going to be using it to run the operating system, that is Windows. In display, you want to make sure you are selecting VBox SVGA. This is going to help to widen the screen. And also make sure your video memory is at 128 megabytes. Anything less than that can reduce the size of the screen. Okay. Okay. Go now to storage. Choose this empty. You can either click here, or while here you can add it right here. Okay. So I'm going to choose empty. Go to this disk, and you can see my Windows 2012. But in case I didn't have it here, I have this here because I've done this installation a couple of times. So this is kind of like it's automatically saved on the recent task area. But I'm going to choose this from the local disk where it is found. So I'm going to look for my Windows. I'm going to choose this 2012. Attach it. Now I have inserted the disk or the ISO for Windows operating system. Next is network. I'm going to choose bridge adapter, and also going to choose the promiscuous mode. I'm going to allow all, and then that's it. Okay, everything looks good. Everything looks good. All right, so I'm going to launch now I'm going to start the virtual machine, okay, to run the operating system. I'm going to choose normal start. All right, so we'll give it a little while it set up. Okay, here we are. Now, this Windows is asking us to choose the language. So we're choosing United States. Just click next, nothing to do, and install. It's also going to take a little while for the installation to be complete. So let's hang on there and wait for the installation. Okay, here I'm going to choose Windows Server 2012 R2 Release 2 Standard Server with GUI. Don't choose the server core installation. This is going to give you only the command line interface. Choose GUI so you can have the graphical interface. Take next. Accept the terms, the license terms. Choose install Windows only. Advanced. The first part. So if you're choosing this one, it means you already have Windows installed and you want to add some features, okay, or you want to upgrade it. But here we are choosing the custom because we are installing for the very first time. And next. Okay, it's going to take a little while to complete. Okay, so installation is done. Now it's rebooting to restart the machine, and it's going to ask me to give my user administrator password. Please, once it asks for the administrator password, try to give something that you can remember, because without the administrator password, you won't be able to log into your machine creation. So ask the Windows operating system authenticator or use. I'm going to give my password now. Okay, now it's ready for me to log in. So what you're going to do, make sure you are pressing the control key on the right of your keyboard. Use your right hand to press the control, press and hold it down, and then you press on delete. It's going to bring this window, this section for you to log in using your password. But in case your keyboard doesn't have the right control key, that's still okay. In case you're using Mac, it's still okay. You won't have it. So what you're going to do, go to input, keyboard, and then you're going to see insert Control Alt Delete. But if you are using the keyboard, don't bother about the Alt key. Not really necessary. Just do Control Delete the right hand side of your keyboard. Okay, so this is still going to perform the same thing. Input, keyboard, this one, click OK. It's going to bring you here the same thing. So I'm going to log in. Okay, now we are logging into our machine. Let's wait for the machine to reboot so that our server manager is going to pop up. Okay. Okay. This is going to take some time for the machine to get ready. Okay, so why at this level, we are going to add some .NET Framework features. So click on Add Roles and Features. Go to Next. Choose the default one, which is role-based or feature-based installation. Next. Next, nothing to do here. Nothing to do here. Take Next. Here, you're going to select the .NET Framework. Add this one, and then this one. We're going to add the features. Okay, so add features, take Next, Next, Next. Right here, we are going to find the source of the .NET Framework. And how do you know the source of the .NET Framework? Go here to your folder or this PC. This is the source, this drive D, is what we are going to use. So go back, come here, make sure you want to type everything the same like this, sources. The only difference will be the disk location. So here our source is D, colon, / sources, / SXS. Everything should look the same. Okay. And install. It's going to take a little while to install. Once it's done, we'll get our installation of the .NET Framework is successful. I'm going to close this. Close this. Okay. Okay, at this point, we are now ready for SQL Server. Okay, so what have we done? We have created a new virtual machine. The virtual machine, we installed our Windows operating system. After configuring our Windows operating system, we added .NET Framework. We also, during the creation of the virtual machine, we gave some resources like storage, memory. Okay, and now everything is set. I've met with the prerequisites for installing SQL Server. Now let's go back to the virtual machine. Go to Setting. Go to Storage. Select disk. Select this, and then go here to the disk, and you want to replace the Windows 2012 with SQL Server 2012. You look for SQL Server 2012 right here. Select this. Make sure you remember the location where you downloaded your ISO, and make sure you are selecting the ISO software released to market. Okay, at this point we are good. You can see the size of SQL Server is 4 gig. Okay. Now we are going to, let's go back into look for the computer. Okay, just give it a little while. It's going to respond, and we will continue. All right. Now select, see here, it's no more Windows. It's now SQL Server CD. Double click on this drive. Double click. Sorry guys, my thing is behaving a little bit slow. Let's wait for it to come up. Okay, so double click on this and then look for setup. You can see the setup right here. It's SQL Server setup. So right click on SQL Server setup and run as administrator. It's very important to run as administrator because certain processes run in the background that may not run if you are not running the setup as an admin. Just give it a little while for it to pop up. Okay, so our SQL Server installation interface or installation wizard. Okay, now you want to make sure right here you go to install, select install, and take note, we have different installation tools on the right side right here. So the first one is new SQL Server is standalone installation. This is when you are installing SQL Server for the first time. So you can select this one to install a standalone SQL Server. But if in case you're doing maybe a cluster installation, so that's not a standalone, right? That means you want to select the new SQL Server failover cluster installation. And assuming you had installed a new SQL Server failover installation, and then you want to add a node to that cluster, you're going to select add node to SQL Server failover cluster. And in case of any upgradation, you select the last one, upgrade from SQL Server 2005, SQL Server 2008, or SQL Server 2008 R2. So if you have, let's say, SQL Server 2012, and sorry, you have 2005 and you want to upgrade to 2012, you have to select this because you cannot just upgrade from 2008. Sorry, you can't just upgrade from 2005 to 2012. You have this installation will help you to. It's going to upgrade from 2005 to at least 2008 R2, and from there you can upgrade to 2002. Okay. Now let's select new SQL Server standalone installation as our business. Give it some time. It's going to come up. While that is coming up, let us create the user a service account that we will use to install our SQL Server. So go to this folder. Sorry, we are going to go to local user. Okay, local user configuration manager. So Windows R, LUSR mgr.msc. Shortcut for local user configuration or local user group, users and group. Right here, we're going to create a new user. Okay, create service account. So let's say this is our service as underscore SVC. That is for service underscore ACT for account. For purpose of practice, we leave everything as it is. There's no need for any full name or description. User must change password. If you want user to change password upon login, when the user is logging in for the first time, you check this box. But that's not necessary for now, so I'm not going to check this. User cannot change password. If you don't want the user to ever change password, you check this. use password never expires. So if you don't want the password to ever expire, you check this. But it's usually good to leave the password to expire after a while for security reasons, such that the user should be able to get a new password after a while. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Create user. I've created that account. I'm going to create one more user. Let me say the username is here. This is a DBA, new DBA that was just, we're going to create this user, and we're going to take the same. Oh, sorry guys, I'm going to recreate the user we just did. I didn't give the password for the first user, so let me recreate that user. Let me recreate that user. We didn't give any password. We go to set password. See, even if you forget to give the password of the user, you can set the password. Okay, take proceed. It's going to ask for the password you want to give. So let's give a password. Let's say, give the same password that you gave for logging in, so that you don't forget. I'm giving the same password that I gave, but it's not best practice. In the real environment, you want to give a password that is known only by you. Click OK. The password has been set for this user. I'm going to right click and choose a new user. Just want to create a user. Say yeah. Okay. We want the password not to expire. Give a password now. So the password will be, I'm going to give the same thing. Okay, create this user. I've created 2 users. Let me create one more. Create group. Mike. Create one more user. Password. Yes. Okay. That's it. Leave it at that. We have 2 more users we have created. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to add this user, particular account, service account user, to the administrator group. So go here. And then we are going to create a group and add the other users to the group. So I'm going to create a DBA group. DBA. This is a DBA group. No need for any description. I want to add a user to that DBA. So I'm going to choose advanced, select find now, and I want to look for those 2 users, Cynthia. Take OK. Choose another user. Find now. Look for Mike. I think I created Mike. Add Mike. So these are the 2 new users that we created. Okay. We're going to add them to this DBA group. So Cynthia and Michael have been added to the DBA group. Create. The group has been created. Close that. Now we have a DBA group, and Cynthia and Michael have been added to this group. Okay. So, but I'm going to add SVC accounts to the administrator group. Add to group. Let me see. Add SVC No. SQL and check it. No. Come up to advanced. Find now. You can find SVC SQL server. This one. Add this to the SQL server. We're adding this SQL service account to the administrator group. Okay. Apply. Okay. So now we are going to be using this SVC account to create our SQL server because he has the administrator's privilege. So take next. Here, this is just checking some prerequisites for SQL server to be able to install. Remember, we give some prerequisites, and one of them we said we are going to be needing .NET Framework 3.5, and this is right here. It has checked .NET Framework, and the check is passed. So SQL Server can be installed on this machine. SQL Server setup with the compatibility. Okay, and let's take next. Next. Let's give it a little while for it to get ready. Okay. Well, there's really nothing here to do. This is the key of the SQL Server product we are installing. So if you ever think you need this key in the future, go to copy it at this point. But I'm not sure we're going to be needing it. So take it next. Accept the license terms. Next. Okay, this is just a warning. It's nothing much about it. So we're ignoring this. We don't need any updates since we do not own any private license to this. Next. And wait for it to perform its installation check. Install setup. It's now installing setup 5. Give it. It's going to take a while. Okay, so let's now, at this point, these are just some warnings. Doesn't mean it doesn't indicate failure, it's just warning, okay? Everything looks good at this point. Let's take next. Now we are going to select SQL Server feature installation. What we want is to install SQL Server Database Engine services, analysis, reporting services, integration services. Well, we don't need all of these other ones, but for the sake of, because we have to select from here, we will select this one now, okay? Take next. Okay, remember in one of our classes, I explained to you guys that when you install SQL Server, you have about 6 services or features that will be installed. 3 of them will be shared and 3 will be fixed features. So database engine is one and it's a fixed feature. We are going to just take replication, but it's not one of the features that default features that will be installed alongside. So we have the full text and semantic extraction. It's a fixed feature. That means it cannot be shared. So each time you're installing SQL Server, all the fixed features must be installed at the time of installation. Okay. Data quality services. Let's just one. Analysis services. We don't need analysis services. We don't need reporting services. We need data quality clients. We need SQL Server. Don't need SQL Server data tools. Client connectivity. Tools connectivity, yes. Client tools SDK, need that. Client tools backward compatibility. What do they mean by backward compatibility? Normally, when you are installing SQL Server, whatever version you're installing should be able to, harmonize, or it should be able to, harmonize with the previous version. So if we go into your drive C of programs, Microsoft SQL Server, when SQL Server will be fully installed, we are going to see all the previous versions of SQL Server that can be installed on that will be compatible with SQL Server 2012. So right now we can see only build number for SQL Server 2012, which is 110. Okay, but after installation, we are going to see for the previous years like 90, 90, 80, and the rest. Okay, so let's go back to the installation. We have chosen client tools backward compatibility, documentation components. We need that. We need management, tools basic, muted, replay control. We don't need that. We need SQL client connectivity SDK and distributed replay client. We don't need that. We are good. Take next. And while you are installing SQL Server, you see it has it's going to be installed in your C program file, Microsoft SQL Server. This is the shared directory actually. This is the shared directory, and this is going to be like your base directory, root directory for the SQL Server installation. Okay, and inside this shared directory, you're going to have some shared features. Okay, so take next. Let's give it a while. Okay, so everything has been checked. You can see here, prior Visual Studio 2010 instances required update passed. Okay, so let's go next. Now, remember I talked about in the last class, I told you guys about the different types of instances SQL Server. We have two types. We have the default instance and the named instance. Now, if you choose the default instance, by default, SQL Server is going to take the name, is going to take the name of the machine. Okay, it's going to take the name of the machine / the name of the instance that you are going to give. But if you choose named instance, you have the privilege to name the instance. And once you name the instance, it's going to give the ID. Okay, so let us today let's install the default instance. Now, remember in SQL Server, you can install only one default instance since it's going to take the name of your, and you can install up to 49 named instances. Inside one instance, you can install up to 32,762 databases. 32,762 databases. Okay, that can be installed in one instance, in one named instance. Okay, or in one instance in SQL Server, you can install up to 32,762 databases. Okay, so let's take next. Right here, we see the instance ID. You want to make sure you don't change the instance ID. You can change it, but it's not good to change it because in case you want to look for this particular instance, you have to identify it by its ID. So if the ID is different from the name of the instance, you may find it difficult to know which instance you are looking for, especially if you have multiple instances in your local drive. So you don't want to change the name, leave it the way it is. This is at this point, we are at the instance root directory. Okay, instance root directory is program files, Microsoft SQL Server. That is the instance root directory. See program file, Microsoft SQL Server, is your instance root directory. Okay, so let's go next. There's really nothing much to do here. Your SQL Server directory, take note, is found inside the SQL Server itself. Directory found in the instance root base directory. So your instance root is C program files, Microsoft SQL Server, and then the base directory will be MSQL 11 dot MSQL Server. Okay, so that's directory of SQL Server. Let's see if we can already see that here. Not yet. Okay, so see right here, this is your SQL Server root directory. So at completion of the installation, we are going to see the complete directory of SQL Server. That is the page. Okay, next. Okay, so as we can see, disk usage summary. This is the disk usage summary for our installation of SQL Server. Let's do next. There's really nothing to do here. Okay, right here, what we are going to do is the account, service account that we gave. We are going to give the service account here. Select here browser for the agent and try to give SQL. And let's check this and see if it works. No, doesn't. Not working. Go to advanced, find now, and then look for SVC. Let's take this one. Okay. That's our service account. Take go here, advanced. Now, give the password that you gave at the time of creation when you created that account. Okay, so we are giving password to SQL Server agent and SQL Server database engine. Now we are, if you take note at the startup type, the agent is manual and the database engine is automatic. Now the reason why agent is manual is simply because if we put it at automatic, that means each time you start up your database, all the jobs that have been scheduled will just start running, and probably you don't want that because jobs should run at particular times and based on demand. So that is why we have here the manual by default, and we're going to leave it like that. We want the database engine to start up automatic, but we're going to be using it on starting up. Okay, we go here to collation. Collation is simply the language of the SQL Server is using. It's standard language, and this Latin one, general CP1 CIAS. CP1 stands for case insensitive, case sensitive, and the AS. So we have the case sensitive for CP, okay, case insensitive for CI, or access sensitive for AS, okay. You can see right down here, case insensitive, accent sensitive, and then, you know, kernel type insensitive. But this is just a language. There's nothing to do here. We go back, go here, and take next. Okay, so let's take next. Okay, here we are going to choose if we want to log in as Windows authentication in using Windows authentication mode or mixed mode authentication. What do we mean by Windows or mixed mode authentication? If you have Windows login, we are logging into SQL Server as a Windows authenticator in a Windows authentication mode, or if you're creating SQL Server in Windows authentication mode, that means only the Windows users can access SQL Server at that time. But if we use mixed mode authentication, we are going to give password, and here both SQL Server users, both Windows users and SQL Server users can access the instance. Okay, so but you can also you can install SQL Server using the Windows authentication mode, later on change it to mixed mode authentication. So, but if you choose mixed mode, you're going to give a password, and if you give a password, you should not forget that password, because if you forget it, you will not be able to make any adjustments if should anything happen to the installation. So let's use Windows authentication, and then we can always switch that. Now here we have to add user. You see a specify SQL Server administrator. We had created an administrator, that we created one user and added to the administrator. So we are going to add that administrator here. So let's just add current administrator. This is our current administrator, and we want to add this a DBA group. Remember, we created a DBA group. So let's here and check name. Okay, this is our DBA group right here. Okay, that's good. Inside our DBA group, we have 2 DBAs. Click OK. And next, these are the people who have access to the database, except you're added to this group. The DBA, the Windows authenticator, can log in. The administrator can log in without, giving password, but the DBA will have to give password in order to log into SQL Server. Next. Everything looks good. Take next. Check. Everything is passed. Next. And we are ready for installation. Okay. Now, look at this configuration file path. This configuration file.ini. This is where all the everything that will be created during this installation will be stored here, and we can use it for troubleshooting as well. Okay, it's the boot setup tab log inside this number 2020-2701. This inside here we have our log. You can also copy this file path and you can copy it. Okay, copy. Let me open a new part somewhere. I'm going to keep it right here. In case you forget, you can always use that to look for that. Now install SQL Server. So guys, this is how you do. This is the steps you follow to install SQL Server as a DBA. Once you do this, ensure that your SQL Server will be successfully installed and you'll be able to have access to it. So this is going to take a while. We'll come back to it when it's ready, okay? I'm going to pause the video. Our installation is now successfully done. So you can see everything is succeeded. Let's close this. Okay, so file part, you see C program files, Microsoft SQL Server. That is 110 setup bootstrap, log files, and summary file, summary text file. This is the text file that I talked about in the last class. I said summary file, it's inside your bootstrap role-based directory. And inside there, you can find this number and you can see your summary text file. This summary text file captured every transaction that has taken place during the installation of this SQL Server. So we can click here and see what we can find inside. I think it's messy, but let's see. Okay, so the thing is messing up a little. Let's just give it some time. It's the machine is gonna get ready and then we can be able to. So if we click on this file, it's gonna open up for us. He's going to ask you, how do you want to open it? You can open it as in Visual Studio, but let's use Notepad since we don't have Visual Studio installed in this machine. This is the file. Now, this is a huge file, the summary text file. It's huge. It has every information about the installation process, the installation that we have done of SQL Server. Okay, so how do you know it was successful? You can see it says final result passed. Exit code is very important. You want to pay attention to it. Once exit code is 0, okay, if your exit code is 0, it means your installation was successful. Okay, but if exit code is anything other than 0, that means it could have been successful. It could have been installed maybe with errors. So you want to check what kind of errors you find inside this file. All right. Okay. So if you have time when you do your installation, you can go through and see what information was captured inside this summary file. All right. Let's get out of this. Close this. I'm gonna close the installation. We are done with the installation. All right. So let's now try to access the SQL Server that we just installed. Okay, so press shortcut to get to SQL Server, Windows R. So press the window keyboard or the start keyboard and press R at the same time, and then type SSMS, enter. Should open up SQL Server for you. Just be patient. It's going to take a little while to boot. It's going to power is going to open up SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so our SQL Server, we have successfully installed a default instance of SQL Server 2012. We have successfully installed a default instance. As you can see here, look, the server name is Windows. The server name, it is the name of your machine, and how you connecting as in the authentication mode. Okay, and you see it says Windows authentication. That's how we are connecting, and what it by default it's going to connect. It's going to impersonate the name of the password of the administrator, of the Windows administrator. Is going to impersonate the password of the Windows administrator, so you won't have to give the password, the username and password. You see here it has the name of the machine and the administrator. By default, it does that, so you can connect, and now you are connected to SQL Server 2012. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the installation of SQL Server 2012. In our next class, we are going to move on to something else. So please, guys, go through this video carefully, follow the steps, and make sure you install your SQL Server in your virtual machine. Next class, we are going to look into something else. However, if you have questions, jot them down. In our next class, we are going to address those. I wish you all the best. Happy weekend, and happy July 4th. Okay.